Today we go back to the innocent 80s, a time when pranks weren't just viral marketing campaigns, but were just about good old-fashioned murder. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today is Torture Me Tuesday, where I take user suggestions and be them good or bad or wanting to hurt me with terrible films or highlight good films and randomly select one for review. And today's suggestion comes to us from Rotted Soul and subscriber Tara Lynn, who recommended 1986's April Fool's Day. I had not seen this one, but this one is another entry into my childhood, having strolled through the VHS rental counters and went to the horror section and looked at the box art of movies that I was not allowed to rent. And I remember this one very specifically. I remember how clever it was, how cool it was. And that's something that, you know, you go through the drama section and it's just, heads with clouds and a sky and, pretty words and, clever little tagline there, where you go to the horror section and it's cool and clever. And this one was no exception. It had the woman with the noose for her ponytail, and I just thought it was interesting, and it always kind of stuck with me, but I never actually went and watched it until subscriber Tara Lynn suggested it. And what I came away with was a surprisingly fun little 80s romp that actually managed to have half a brain to it. I'm going to go ahead and throw up all the scores here of what I thought of it. Again, each category is worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. So this has the character of Muffy, who is a rich college student, and her family owns a property on an island, and for spring break, she invites 9 of her friends to join her there for, the weekend. So over the course of April Fool's Day, April 1st, presumably 1986, these 9 friends go there, and they're on the way there. There is an accident on the ferry that is taking them there, where one of the ferrymen gets terribly injured, and it kind of sets the tone for the weekend to come, as one by one they start kind of getting picked off by a random unknown assailant, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to figure out who's doing what. They're trying to figure out if even anything's even actually happening, or if people are just getting lost towards the beginning of it. And this is a very difficult movie for me to review in any kind of spoiler-free fashion, because what I liked about it was something that I think would give the plot away. And so I'm going to have to dance around it a little bit here. But for me, this was not the most cerebral or tightly woven, intricate plot in the world, but it tries. It does try. And on many levels, I think it achieves a good degree of success. What I will say that may be spoilery, I'm going to try and, is you have to look beyond the surface level plot line. This borrows a lot of tried and true murder mystery literature and cobbles together a lot of those pieces, mostly convincingly. And one of they even mention Agatha Christie towards the beginning of the film. And if you're familiar with those kind of works at all, you know that whatever is being surface level presented to you is not always what is actually going on. So I really had this one figured out pretty early on, and if you pay attention to the movie and the general tone, it really isn't that difficult to pick up on, but it does try. And when you're watching a movie such as this, and especially like a murder mystery, the characters are trying to figure out what's going on, and you in turn are also trying to figure out what's going on. You'll hypothesize, and you'll put a large percentage. I'm 80% sure this is what's happening. But I at least when I watch things like this, and I do that, I at least try to leave some wiggle room for being wrong. I leave it open a bit for the possibility that maybe something else is happening. And with this one in particular, I think I did that. I think I put a good chunk of what was going on. I put a large bet on it in my brain, and it turns out I was right, but there were certain elements of it that made me question my decision. This did a really great job of putting elements in place that lent credence to a multitude of hypotheses. What starts out as a pretty generic 80s slasher trope-filled affair, it not only turns itself around, but it manages to redeem all the previous generic moments to it. And I genuinely really enjoyed this one. Deborah Foreman as Muffy did a fairly decent job. I think everybody in this one did a fairly decent job in the acting category here. But I mean, this was kind of 80s slasher through and through. There wasn't anything terribly challenging in the acting category here, but I think everybody put on a pretty decent performance, especially having a lot of very unknown named actors in this one. I think the biggest name in this one is Thomas F. Wilson, who you might remember as Biff from Back to the Future, but otherwise most of the people in this one were just kind of never really made it big, never really made a name for themselves, but I think still pulled off a fairly decent performance. But one of the things that I really wanted to highlight in this film was the technical category. It has the highest score of any of the four categories, and there's a reason for that. When you have a movie that the plot is so contingent on different pieces being in play, and with the end, when you have a character kind of give a 5-minute sum up of what was going on for the previous hour and 25 minutes, that previous hour and 25 minutes better match it. And the editing, I thought, was done really, really well. The direction and the editing and the writing all served to meet up with the conclusion of the film. And there were a lot of other little technical moments in this one I liked. First of all, the makeup effects were really good. Plausibly good as well for what was going on. There was a moment towards the beginning that I knew that this was not just an amateurish affair, and it was a moment when it went from 4:3 aspect ratio to I think it was, I don't remember which it was now, but it was a cinema, widescreen-esque, and the transition wasn't just, the bars shrinking or the screen moving out. It was actually done in time with the character almost like pushing it. I don't know. Just something about that was pretty darn clever to me. And it made me think that maybe there was a little bit of extra care put in this film by the creators. And I think that moment for me held true throughout. There was a lot of special care taken in this film by the creators, and I think that's one of the reasons that it worked so well for me. So I gave it a total score of 74 out of 100 points. I really loved this movie for the simple up and down roller coaster that it was. And honestly, it was also nice to see a well-executed 80s horror concept not beaten to death by its own sequels. This was a one-off film, and I think it was done well, and hats off to it for it. So on that basis, thank you, Tara Lynn. You had the opportunity to torture me, but instead you delighted me. So if you out there want to torture me or show me a film that you think I should review, please leave it in the comments below. I will be adding it to the list and doing random selections from there. But that's my review of April Fool's Day. I really thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like these videos, please click like and subscribe. And if you want to support me further, my Patreon link is below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.